What's going on, YouTube? A Fly Guy Gaming here, and you saw the title, so let's jump right into it. Today we're talking Dokkan and a potential solution for JP versus Global. Now, I kind of wanted to meme the hell out of this video, but I am terrible at video editing, and instead of making you guys cringe, I figured I'd just change the tone and make this a bit more serious. So, let's start off with my position. First off, I'm in the camp that Global should catch up. Now, I understand that not everyone agrees with this position, and rightfully so. I mean, there's a lot of benefits for Global being behind, but even if we do want to catch up, there are some realities that we kind of have to come to terms with. First and foremost, that the rapid pacing it will take to catch up to JP is going to hurt free-to-play players. Think about it like this. We're not going to have time, for most of us, unless we're playing this game 24/7, to go through all the events, and if they do try and catch this up, Akatsuki's likely to skip some corners, and the reason being is they are definitely guaranteed to lose money in the short term. Now, long term, I can only speculate, but short term, if you think about it, most banners last between 2 and 3 weeks, and this isn't by coincidence. It's by design. Like, Akatsuki wants at least a banner to be up for a pay period, so for normal people, so that you're tempted to spend your money on stones so that you can go out and pick up these units. I mean, it's smart business, and you can't really be mad at them for that. Moving more to the community side, at least the global side, the loss of tickets and Pilaf's Trove are going to be the two biggest immediate downsides to potentially catching up with JP Dokkan. Tickets, self-explanatory. It's basically free stones. You basically get a rebate for summoning, and ultimately that's a good thing, and hopefully in my solution I can cover a way that Global doesn't lose their tickets and essentially JP shares this benefit, which would be good for the entire player base. But Pilaf's Trove, on the other hand, is a bit more nuanced. Now, the thing about Pilaf's Trove is most of this stuff is pretty bad. Like, if you look through this, go down, I bought some of the rank up packs, but they're not particularly good. Hidden Potential, big scam. Everyone knows that. Awakening in this mysterious pack, a lot of this stuff can be grinded up in game, so if you're patient, you'll build up a stockpile and be fine. And I bought the beginners pack. I thought it was decent at the time. It's only 10 bucks, but if you're completely free to play or even a light spender, you definitely could skip on it and it won't hurt your account in the long run. But the thing I wanted to talk about is the daily capsule. Now, if you look at the daily capsule, I've purchased this. It's 10 bucks. 10 bucks, and you end up with, I believe, 95 stones. So if you look at the pricing on this, yeah, I've bought a couple super packs. Definitely one of those, that new GT Goku and GT Vegeta. Luckily, I got them, and I'll definitely put out a video later. But back on topic. If you look at the 91 stone pack, outside of a sale, that $10 pack is worth more in value. It's about 4.5, the 4 times the value of a big pack spread out over the course of a month. So if you're a light spender, or free-to-play spender, like someone without a job that's just playing the game every day, logging in, grinding up your stones, and looking for high-value banners to roll on, this is actually a pretty big boon, because if you think about it, you get a big pack's worth for 10 bucks, and you can go ahead and get a Google Play card, a Apple Store card with $10. I'm sure you can find it, and you can essentially be a free-to-play player and benefit from this pack. So losing that, or potentially losing that in a sync up between JP and Global, is kind of a big loss for the light spenders and the free-to-play crowd. Well, not really free-to-play, but the light spender crowd, which is probably a large majority of it, of the player base. Another thing I want to touch on is top grossing rules may change again. I'll touch on this again later, but currently as it stands, every time JP hits top grossing in either the iOS or the Android side of the store, they get 30 stones. I'm not here to argue which is worth more. I'm just saying that's between 4 and 5 countries hitting top grossing on the global side. So if they sync up, what is Bandai/Akatsuki's mindset when it comes to top grossing? And again, I'll cover that later, but that's just something to think about. So moving away from the obvious negatives, I want to talk about how can we get this particular setting done. Excuse me, I've been sitting here talking in the mic, but I haven't been playing, so I'm going to go ahead and do something, probably Ultimate Clash. I need to finish this. But again, how do we get this done? So we're looking at a consumer side solution. So by that I mean we need to, as a community, both Global and JP, open up a dialogue about syncing the games up. And we need to do it in a manner that presents a solution to Akatsuki Bandai, and kind of puts the ball in their court for them to like either heed this solution we bring forth, or at least put it on their radar so they're thinking about it outside of just like a board meeting. Because if it's on the player's mind, it's definitely going to be on Akatsuki's mind. But the big thing is we have to present it in a way that can kind of mold it for the betterment of Dokkan. So, because if you think about it, like Akatsuki definitely pays attention to like what the community bases are saying. Let me go back for a second, because there's a guy in some of our boxes that, if we're blessed enough to have them, thankfully, is a shining example of that, and that would be this gentleman here. This last New Year's banner coming around, there was a big hiccup with this guy, and I'm sure some of you players remember that. And if you think about it, Akatsuki listened slowly, not very eagerly, but they definitely listen. So that's definitely a point in our favor, and we should keep that in mind when we're presenting ideas forward. So let me get back to what I was doing before. But ideally, we propose a plan that benefits both servers. For Global, the biggest things that we need to look for is getting updates or quality of life changes that are missing in our game. One being Baba Shop. Yeah, like not having the Baba Shop update, like the trade points, the treasures. Oh my goodness, the treasures. Like, I was lucky enough that I didn't spend my Krillins from the shop to, to like as fodder for another Krillin, mainly because there wasn't a good one out beforehand. But I know there are players without that Krillin, and let me see if I can even still see him. If not, you guys know what Krillin I'm talking about. And two, it's like just not having this updated so far out of the timeline, it's causing problems down the road. Hopefully we get it in an upcoming update, but it's looking like it's just kind of forgotten. Another big thing that Global definitely needs to address is this right here. Give me a moment. If you're looking at the growth stages, these orb stages here, this orb stage right here, the fact that we don't have the boss that randomly generates, and instead we have Pilaf Trove, is a big miss on Akatsuki's part. Because yeah, Pilaf Trove can be there, but like getting the boss, why can't we have both? Like, I understand they want to monetize it, but they've priced themselves out of the market. Like, that Pilaf Trove pack is, what is it, $20, and it's not even a full path? Like, come on, man. So looking at that, these are two big things that we need to touch on. And of course, the biggest thing is we need to get on the JP timeline, because in my opinion, that is the primary timeline from Akatsuki's perspective. Everything's balanced around that, everything's released around that, and yeah, I can agree when Global gets things early, it kind of messes it up, but more so, it's Akatsuki not planning two coherent timelines. They have one primary one and kind of one secondary one, and that, instead of like the Global first being the problem, is the actual problem, the root cause of all of this. So all that being said, getting on that timeline is how we end up in a situation, or we end up avoiding situations like delayed EZAs, the fiascos with extreme and normal super battle road being delayed, and all of that would just make it a more cohesive experience for, I guess, both sides of the player base. Now for JP, on the other hand, the obvious thing that they should get when it comes to syncing up both of these servers is tickets. Like, I can understand as a Global player a JP player's frustration when you hear Global talking about getting shafted, and in the back of your mind all you're hearing is, man, you might get shafted like on the quality of life of the game, but when it comes to those big banners with those big Dokkan Fest, that if you're a free-to-play player and you've been skipping and you're going up for them, getting a rebate it's 3 1/3 summons, but pretty much every free cycle, or just under a rebate every free cycle for a 10 roll, has got to sting. So I definitely sympathize with that. But let's be real. Like, investing, like, as a free-to-play player, if you're investing into these larger banners, that's the best way to look at the game. I mean, I can't really like lecture people considering that I have bought and I am a spender in the game, but just looking at it from like a fiscally responsible way, that's definitely the way to play the game and like maximize your stone usage. Well, getting back on topic on getting like this solution to Akatsuki, I think it's the most important thing is frame this solution that I'm going to say in a way that both communities on their separate Twitters, like on the JP side of the Twitter house and the global side of the Twitter house, be talking about it and be discussing it in between each other. That's going to be the tough part. Hopefully we can get some people that speak English on the JP side and some people that speak Japanese on the global side. Gosh. And like foster a dialogue so that like we can get on the same page and then present this solution to Akatsuki. But moving forward, big thing I want to note, is some of the potential outcomes. And I'm not gonna lie, of the 4 that I've thought of, it's not looking too good for most of it. But hey, if this stuff is causing players like me to think that had really no interest in voicing an opinion on the matter, I'm sure it's on other people's mind, and like working towards a solution, even if it doesn't come to fruition, well, hey, it might help some people feel better. So for the most likely outcome, Bandai Akatsuki doesn't acknowledge this hypothetical Twitter discussion at all. They go along with everything is normal, and this is probably what's going to happen regardless, and we shouldn't, if this were to go down, shouldn't expect change instantly or even quickly. It's for something like this to work, the biggest things is the proposal has to be persistent and consistent from both JP and global side. And what I mean by that is we have to bring it up on not every post, but keep it alive, especially for the larger comments. Like, yeah, I love the memes like going under Akatsuki and Global Dokkan's Twitter, and people are posting screenshots of the Baba Shop. But if we have like a ratio level comment on every one of their posts, it's gonna catch someone's attention, and doubly if it's coming from both sides. 2, what I think is less likely is Benkatsuki doesn't acknowledge the call to catch up the servers, but cleans up Global's timeline so joint events can receive all relevant content at the same time, even though Global's still behind. And I think some parts of this outcome can gain traction only if we stay persistent and consistent. Most likely joint events would be reduced, like just the random ones popping up out of nowhere, kind of like the holiday tech Gohan we got from the BoJack movie. Those would probably slow down until Global catches up on relevant events or relevant content. So what I mean is hopefully JP would slow down while we catch up on world tournaments, battlefields, and EZAs, like maybe a 2-to-1 ratio. And even though they don't publicly acknowledge it, we can see us gaining steam. We're kind of going to that mode right now because we're gearing up. Like, we're going to go into a trough as we gear up for the anniversary. But JP's probably going to just be getting scattered Dokkan Fest. We have a joint legendary summon probably coming in part 2. And then after that, JP might get a couple Dokkan Fests as they wait for the worldwide download celebration. So moving on from that outcome, we come to a unlikely outcome, but still kind of in the realm of plausibility. Bandai and Akatsuki still don't acknowledge the conversation, but instead outlines a sync up for both versions in the game news. And if that were to happen, I would guess it'd be something like version Z maybe, or maybe a bit down the road after that. And while that outcome is pretty good because, hey, we could end up in a situation where the games are synced up and we don't have as rampant shaft on the global side, it would exclude player input, and we can end up with a synced game that has some downsides. Like, imagine tickets and peel-off disappear and we don't get the Baba Shop. Tickets and peel-off disappear and we don't get the Baba Shop and orb change stages. Like, that'd just be terrible. And at the same time, I'd like to touch back on the top grossing point I made earlier. Because let's say this does happen, will Global be required to hit a certain amount of countries to get top grossing, or the same one as JP? Or will they delay JP's top grossing to wait and see if Global hits their top grossing? I'm gonna tell you that latter one, it's not happening. JP's gonna get their top grossing immediately. I mean, that's the industry standard, and syncing up the versions and having them delay it would be a shaft to JP, and that's not something like we want to do here. We want net positives for everyone. So I'm gonna be honest, I don't see JP being shafted in that manner, and I don't really see Akatsuki being that generous. Although in this last celebration we did get 30 stones, even though only Luxembourg, I believe, hit top grossing on the global side, and JP didn't hit top grossing. So we could probably see a situation like that, especially on like larger Dokkan Fest. And let's say like something hype comes out, like let's say Final Flash Vegeta comes out and 3 or 4 countries hit it in in global, but JP can't quite get there because like the gacha market. I could see this being a net benefit. Like, man, what happens if global hits 3 or 4 and Bandai's like, yeah man, good shit, here's 30 stones, or maybe even 50 depending on the size of the banner if it's a dual Dokkan Fest. And outside of that like glimmer of hope, I mostly see an outcome like this, especially without player input, potentially putting the community in a weird place. So finally, for the last outcome, this is the one I personally would like to see. This kind of social media discussion that's happening on both sides, because we've kind of aired out our grievances and outlined a plan, like what we would like to see for both versions moving forward. Bandai and Akatsuki open up a dialogue with the players, probably through a survey, and they directly ask us what we would want, and we kind of outline that in like a mass movement. And I do realize that if you're watching YouTube and you're trolling the subreddit for information on Dokkan, you're probably more invested than the average player. So we got to understand that we're a percentage of the overall player base. But even still, like the vocal, if enough people get in tune with this and lay out this plan, there's a realistic chance that Akatsuki could listen. And let's say they do outline a sync up timeline, and they do take most, if not all, of these suggestions. I could potentially see a sync up happening around Worldwide Download Celebration or the JP Anniversary. Personally, I would prefer the JP Anniversary because it's a longer period of time to map out Global's catch up, and that just kind of relieves the strain on these low spenders and these free-to-play players, because even if you're smart about it, sometimes a banner comes up and it's just a hype unit and you want to spend some stones. Like, the point of the game isn't to be like super miserly and like I always have to have the meta units. It's to have fun with your favorite units, and sometimes like your favorite unit isn't meta, so having more time to have a sync up, like a definite date, would definitely be a good thing. And ultimately, let's say it does sync up on the JP Anniversary, we could then move the worldwide download celebration to the global anniversary, so we still end up with 2 extremely hype LRs a year, and they're now roughly 6 months apart. This way, it's like if you're investing your stones or saving your stones wisely, it's like, dude, you have 2 banners, probably Tanabata, and maybe Thanksgiving. So we have like 2 large dual Dokkan Fests for URs, and we have 2 large LR dual Dokkan Fests that could work out perfectly. Anyway, so let's move on to the closing thoughts. Guys, this is all just my opinion. I could be a freaking moron, just completely out of whack, and I could actually have been the person that had the idea that saved Dokkan. The former is more likely, but all of this is coming from a place where I don't hate either versions, but I definitely see the server wars between the two as super petty and kind of annoying, because like the way I look at it is we're the consumer here, and rather than looking at the other side, it's like they're screwing me over, we should look at the actual provider. We should look at the person giving out the product and be like, hey, I'm noticing this side has this, and do something like a price match. It's like, let's look for the net positive between both communities, because if we get that, man, it's like this game from 2021 on could be even better. Well, Anyway, that's it for me. If you like the video, give a like. If you want to see more content from me, definitely subscribe. And more importantly, please comment, because I definitely made this to engage with the community, even though beforehand I had no interest in doing it, but I definitely want to hear your guys' opinion. Well, that's my piece, and stay fly, guys. Fly Guy Gaming, out.